Welcome back to the Badass Literature Society, where badasses come together to rate and review novels recommended by you. Hi, I'm Michael.
This is Barbara.
We are back for another bonus episode. This time we are going to talk about a book, actually a little bit different than our normal bonus episodes. We're going to do an extra review this month of Realmbreaker by Victoria Aveyard. We actually read this book in preparation for a guest appearance on YA Book Chat, a different podcast. It's hosted by Leah, so you should definitely tune in to her podcast and check out the episode we're featured on, as well as all the other books that she's read too. But yeah, so we're going to do a mini review of Realmbreaker by Victoria Aveyard, which is Barbara and I. Before we get into the actual thoughts as far as what we thought about the book and all of those things, though, Barbara, do you want to give us a quick recap of the plot? Okay,
so no spoilers here. We have a group of individuals that come together to, on a magical adventure, essentially, to go and save the realm against evil forces, and it's pretty much it.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. That's pretty much the... I
mean, it's kind of hard to give it without spoiling anything. The book goes into 4 different perspectives, I believe.
Yeah, I think that's right.
4 or 5.
It's either 4 or 5.
Between 5 of them. And you kind of go with this ragtag team of trying to save the realm, essentially. And
so I think another thing we could probably talk about as far as like the plot, spoiler free, is kind of maybe go over like the main characters of the book, the ragtag group of adventurers.
Sure. So you have Erida. She is one of the queens of the realms. There's a few different realms, I believe. It's a huge map. There's a lot going on, as any high fantasy. So there's just a lot of different places. I can't quite remember. Do you remember what her realm?
Well, like the name of her realm was?
Yeah, it's Garland. It's something with a G, isn't
it? Garand, I think.
I don't know. But so she's the queen of that, and she's a young 19-year-old queen. You have Sarasa. She is the assassin of the group. So just keep in mind, this is all little tropey fantasy tropes here. So you have, the queen. You have Sarasa, which is the assassin, the badass girl assassin. We have Demacrion. He's the immortal, godlike creature. He's a race of immortals that is in the books. Andri is a squire. Corayne is technically what I would consider one of the main characters. Yeah, you get a lot of her point of views, and she's, the Frodo of the group. I just got tossed into this adventure, not really wanting it, but kind of having to. She finds out that she's needed to save the realm, essentially. Baltic is the rhyming witch of the group, and that's pretty much all she is. You get Charlie or Charlon. I don't know how you say his first original.
I think you were pretty close with his
Charlon. It's either Charlon or Charlon.
I think it's
he goes by Charlie.
But
yes, you meet him a little bit later. I feel like that's kind of spoilery of what he does. And then Sigil is another badass girl character who's a whatchamacallit.
Definitely no shortage of badass girl characters in this book.
Yes, which
was fun.
So, if you don't know anything about this book, Victoria is a huge fan of Tolkien's, and she wanted to write a book like that, like Lord of the Rings, but with more female characters, since Lord of the Rings is severely lacking in female characters at all. So I think she did a really good job of that, actually.
Erida is Queen of Galland, by the way.
Galland.
Galland is the kingdom.
And then your baddies are Terriston and the Red Priest.
Dun, dun, dun.
And then a creepy person that you don't really get a name of, and I don't want to spoil that one because I think that might be a little spoiler.
That might be a little spoiler, yeah.
Those are your band of ragtag heroes.
Yeah, so that is our band our party of adventurers, one might say. So yeah, I mean, what you said it was like her Tolkien. It was absolutely a love letter to Tolkien. I got that from it too. Like the way that she wrote it, the way the story is, it's very much a grand adventure that will take place across, I think it's supposed to be a trilogy, right? 3 books,
correct.
But it's done
3 books. Yeah.
So yeah, definitely got those vibes for sure. So that was a little bit of a recap of the plot, a little bit of a going over the
not really a recap of the plot.
It's a tiny baby recap of the plot. There's only so much plot you can talk about without giving away too much, especially after you've read the book.
Right.
What about like just like thoughts? What would you rate the book? Maybe not your individual rating, but like what are your thoughts about Realmbreaker? Spoiler free thoughts about Realmbreaker.
Right. I mean, so I think going into it, you have to realize that it is a high fantasy novel. Just like, I feel like we're going to compare it a lot to Tolkien's book.
Probably.
But it's in the same vein. I feel like you have this group of people who band together to save their world, essentially. I think she did a really good job with characters. I really enjoy the characters. The plot, I mean, you get a lot of plot, but obviously, so it's part one of a trilogy, and you're going to have to keep that in mind because she does do a lot of world building, but I don't think it's a over in your face world building like some books are. Harkens back to like the Prior of the Orange Tree. I feel like that was a little too excessive of world building for one book. If this was just one book and she wanted to stuff all that, I feel like that would have been too much. But I think she does a really good job of balancing plot with characters and world building. The world feels extremely well lived in. I think she did a wonderful job of describing any time we get to like a new scene, a new city, a new port, just anything. Like the world feels lived in. It's not, an empty shell of a world. She does a wonderful job of making it feel like you're there and you can see this world that she has built. The characters I feel like are all really cool. I enjoyed all the characters, even the bad guys. Like I love the bad guys too. I'm a huge fan of really well-written bad guys because I feel like they're the driving plot for our good guys too. So if you have like a dull bad guy, it just kind of makes the story a little bit duller. At least for me, it does. If there are obviously bad guys, some books don't have that, obviously.
As proof of that concept, if you haven't listened to our last episode, 13, you can hear Lauren and Barbara talk about how much they love the bad guy, a serial killer.
Exactly, but it's a well-written bad guys. So I really like that. I want to know more about them. I don't know. I just really enjoyed it. It is a little slow, I think. So for someone who doesn't like fantasy novels or isn't used to fantasy novels or who want something really quick paced, I don't think this book is for you because it does kind of take a while to build because there's a lot going on, a little puzzle pieces for the overall story and plot. And so, we're just giving a small amount of that. So I feel like it does take a while to build up to it, but I think she does a good job because the characters are what holds the story for me moving forward were the characters. And I think they did a good job for me to not feel so bored. Like I was invested in the conversations that they were having. The conversations were important because that's, you learn about the world or you learned about the characters a little or what was going on. So I think she did a good job with that.
Yeah, me too. I have a lot of similar thoughts that you do. I did want to say going in that I think that you and I are not the most unbiased people when giving reviews about world building because we love world building and like that stuff a lot more than some other people might. But I thought her world building was fantastic. I think like you have to go into this book kind of like how you would go into like if you were sitting down to read the Fellowship of the Ring for the first time. Like you have to understand that you're not going to get an entire self-contained story. It's going to get to the end of the book, and then you're going to be like, oh, God, what happens next? And you're going to have to move on to the next book to get that. And so if you're someone that likes fantasy but is all about self-contained and doesn't want to read a whole trilogy, then I wouldn't read this book because it's like 1/3 of the story, kind of the way Fellowship is 1/3 of the whole Lord of the Rings. I also loved the characters. I thought she did a great job developing each of them. Like Barbara said, the world felt incredibly lived in. Like every place you stopped, you got another description about what it was, and it felt alive. And it's not every book that completely sucks you in and makes you feel like that you're almost part of the world, like you're standing there on the sidelines of the bazaar of some city watching things happen. And she does a really good job with that. We'll get into some more of the character stuff later, but we'll definitely want to talk about she flips a lot of traditional fantasy character tropes around. And I know Barbara's got a lot of thoughts on that, so we'll definitely talk about that.
I didn't think you thought she did that.
I thought some of them, not to the extent that you did. There are definitely some. Overall, I loved the book. If you like fantasy, I couldn't recommend it to you enough. But coming into this, I had never read anything by Victoria Aveyard. I knew that she had written the Red Queen series that Barbara has, but I haven't read it. And I don't think you haven't read it either, right? The Red Queen?
I've read some. I have read some.
Fair
of
enough.
it. I haven't finished it, but it's honestly, it's very different. These books are very different. First off, the Red Queen series are first person. This is third person perspective, so keep that in mind. I know some people aren't a huge fan of first person narratives, so she did change that about the series. Whether you prefer one or the other, that is the difference between them. And I think this is a very stereotypical, I think, what I would consider the fantasy of we're going on an adventure fantasy where you have a little band, a group of people, and they're trying to do something, whereas the other one's a little bit different than that.
Yep. Okay, well, yeah, that's fair. I do want to read the Red Queen though. That's what I was getting at, is that after reading this, I want to read more because I really like the way that she writes. And so, if the Red Queen is even half as good as this was, I'm in. That was all I was getting at. So we have talked about our spoiler-free thoughts. There are so many things we want to get into that are spoiler-heavy. So at this point, if you are still listening to this podcast, just like one of our normal episodes, and you are like, man, I really want to read this book, stop now, come back later after you read it, because there's a lot that happens in Realmbreaker that we're going to unpack. And if you want to read the book, I don't want to spoil it for you. So if you don't care and you want to keep listening, go for it. But we're about to jump into the second half.
These days, more authors are including mental health content in their books. But do you ever wonder how accurate some of this stuff is?
Or do you ever read something where you know the author just gets it?
I'm Elise.
And I'm Priscilla.
And we are Novel Feelings, a podcast where we discuss mental health issues in fiction novels.
We are psychologists and book lovers, and we have a lot of opinions.
So look for Novel Feelings wherever you get your podcasts.
Now, back to your show.
Well, if you're still here, we're going to talk about the book a little bit more. We're going to dive into some spoilers and unravel the plot a little bit further. So first, let's just kind of actually talk about some of these characters and their storyline as they go through the book. I want to first start by asking you, Barbara, who was your favorite character of the band of adventurers that we get?
It's funny. Normally I feel like sometimes I do have one that just really screams to me, or like I really identify, not even with, but like I really, really enjoy. But with this one, I feel like I enjoyed everyone. I mean, obviously, I have a few of like really, really, really enjoyed, but the overall characters, I really, really like them. Are we going to spoil like bad guys and stuff like that? I mean, I guess
this is the spoiler section. So if they're still here listening, that's on them if you want to talk about the bad guys.
Yeah. So I really liked Sarasa, obviously, because I feel like, I don't know why, but so if you've listened to any of the other bonus podcasts, especially the one that we did a little bit about ourselves, you would know that my little caricature on our what is it called, thumbnail for our podcast was I wanted to be the assassin of the group. So obviously I gravitated towards the assassin.
Take that bit of knowledge as you will, that Barbara wants to be an assassin.
I mean, yeah, they're awesome. They get away with killing. Is that everybody's dream, Michael? Anyways, so I really liked her. I thought she was really interesting. I mean, some people would say it's very stereotypical, like assassin, where, they're a little bit morally gray character. They kind of have their own code that they follow. They're not necessarily like the hero that's like, all hero-ish and all that jazz. But I think she was well written. I really enjoyed her. And I really liked Erida, because like you think she's going to be this nice queen, and then it turns out that she kind of picked her side, and she picked what most people would consider the bad side, because she marries
what everyone would consider the prologue. So she picks Terriston, who the prologue paints as like the evil guy, and the first 20 pages of the book, he kills how many people?
Michael, if it's your point of view, other people are the villains of your story. So if you're in Terriston's view, then everyone else is the villains in his story. So, hey, we don't know. Maybe everyone else is evil and Terriston's the good guy. How do you know she's not going to go that route? We don't know. We don't know if she's going to go through that route.
Maybe she'll betray him later on if he continues to be super evil. And
I don't know. Why I like Erida is because she is yes, Sarasa is your morally gray character, but not really, because she knows that if she doesn't help these, because she was in no obligation to help Domacrion or Corayne or Andri, really, when she kind of, she did her duty. She got paid for leading Domacrion to Andri and the sword, the spindle sword, and Erida, really, and that was all she had to do. But then she was she knew that if she didn't continue to help them and assist them in this little adventure that they were having, that her world would pretty much end. And she didn't want that. Like, she saw the creepy, like, zombie like fighters from one of the spindles that comes out from in the prologue. Aerida is your true morally gray character, because she, and I just found her so it's just very interesting because she is a female queen, right? She's the queen. She got this throne because her father passed away. And the first thing that she has to do is get married, because she needs to have a man, of course, rule for her. And of course, she has to create babies, because why not? Because that's all she's important. And she wants more. And I love that. She's not afraid of saying that she wants more. She wants to be the queen that does everything. She wants a king. It's pretty much like she is only getting married because she has to. Like, if it was up to her, she wouldn't even get married. And she wants to be the one who she wants the glory. Like, she wants the glory. She wants
a show king. Like, where he's there, they're married, there's just a king, but she's going to run the show.
Right. Like, she wants to be the queen that everyone talks about. Like, she wants world domination. And the way she figured of doing that was Terrasen comes up to her, is like, hey, like, I can promise you this, and that she sees the opportunity. You know, she's like, okay, like, I'm the one who has the balls to do this. No other person had the galls to do this during her people's rule. Like, she even mentions at one point that, like, they haven't been to war in a really long time. Like, they haven't conquered any of these lands. They haven't done anything. They're kind of at this little standstill, and she wasn't okay with that. Like, she wanted more. I don't think she realizes what she agreed to, though. I think Terrasen just said, hey, I'll give you this world, and I don't think she realizes she's going to rule this dead world, because that is who What Waits does. Like, he ruins realms. Like, he pretty much takes this realm, and it's not going to be like I think what she thinks is going to happen is she's going to rule all these people, and they're going to be normal looking people, but I'm pretty sure What Waits is going to turn them into those little zombie people that we see in the prologue. And I don't really think she understands what she signed up for. So I'm very interested to see what happens. Cause, like, right now she's all for it. You know, she's like, yeah, I want, you know, to take over these people. She already started conquering a little bit of the other kingdoms around her borders at the end of this book. But I don't think she realizes what Terrasen actually has in store for him and Mr. Ronan.
My prediction right now for the future of these books, because there's only one released, is that Aerida is not going to make it out alive.
Oh, you think she dies?
I think she's going to die. I think that either one of two ways. So I either think that she is going to, like, realize that, like, maybe she doesn't want to be the queen of, like, hell, effectively, and maybe try to change something, or she'll try to like go against Terrasen, and that's not going to work, and he'll kill her. Or the other option is that she will outlive her usefulness to Terrasen, because at the end of the day, I don't think he really cares about her that much, and I think if he gets what he wants out of the relationship with her, then maybe he'll just kill her, or send her to the monsters.
I got a little hint of them kind of bonding, like, romantically. I feel like she likes, maybe. Like, she's curious about him. Like, she finally found someone that, because I feel like she didn't want to have a guy who ruled over her. She didn't want that as a husband. She also didn't want a pushover guy either. And I feel like she met her match with him, and I think that intrigues her. And maybe with a little bit with Terrasen too. Oh, you don't think he's interested?
I don't think he is. I know. I don't think he's interested. I don't think so. I think maybe a little, but I think that if there's feelings involved at all, I think she has more feelings than he does. I think for him, marrying her is a means to an end. It's a means to conquer the world. And once he's done that, whether he'll have use for her anymore at that point, maybe their relationship will grow in the other books, and then he won't kill her, and then she'll die for some other reason. But at the end of the day, I don't think Aerida makes it out of these books alive. That's just my prediction.
Fair enough. Yeah, I'm curious to know who's going to die, because she is known to, like, murder people. So
I didn't know that, but that's interesting.
Oh, yes. So I'm curious to know who's going to die.
So my favorite character, I thought so much about this after we read the book, and it's hard. It's hard to pick a favorite character in this book, because this is going to sound stupid and cliche, but I liked all the characters. Like, I really did like all of them. And
P.S. I also liked Corayne. I feel like people, like, the reviews that I saw. So I'm going to jump in real quick because I wasn't done.
How dare you?
I know. But like, I really like Corayne because I feel like people are giving her, like, she's getting bad, whatever, press. I don't know.
Bad press.
Bad press. But like, this is why I like her, because she is 17 years old, right? She's thrust into this, we need your blood to save the realm. She doesn't really get a choice. Like, it's either you screw everyone over by not doing this, or you kind of just have to do it. So she takes it in stride. She goes. But like, people are complaining that she doesn't do much and that she always needs like Sarasa or Demacrion or even Andry saving her. But it's like, as she should. She doesn't have any background in fighting. And I hate these books where like you get your what is it, your main character person who has no idea from anything, and then you get like what I always think is like little montage of them learning how to fight for a month, and then all of a sudden they're like this badass fighter. It's like, that's not realistic. And I know this, me complaining about a fantasy book being realistic, I understand, I get it, okay, I understand that's stupid for me to think, but like within this world that you build, you still need to have rules for your characters. You can't just be like, oh, she's never used magic and all of a sudden she's amazing at it. Like, no, she hasn't been trained. Like, Sarasa is an awesome fighter and she knows, but she's been doing this since she was a little girl with a band of thief, like a assassin guild who's been training her since she was little. So obviously she knows how to fight. Same with Demacrion. He's 500 years old, which for his people is considered young.
Also, he's a baby.
Right, and you can tell, like, it's funny how, like, he does kind of act childish, even though he is the oldest one among them, but in his clan or in his people's world, like, he's considered a child, and he has those hints of acting like a child, which I thought was a really nice touch. But, like, she shouldn't be able to do all this stuff like they do. Like, she shouldn't be like Sigil, who knows how to fight, who knows how to do this, who is a hardened battle warrior type person. Like, yeah, she does need the help. And I enjoy that because I hate when they have like, oh, in a month she got trained and she knows how to wield a sword. Like, no, she shouldn't know how to do that. So I'm excited to see her grow into that, but not necessarily like she still needs her core group of people to help. Like Frodo without anything else, Frodo was just kind of worthless and he was just good because pure of heart. And that's about it. Like, okay, that's her. That is her character. And I really enjoy that too. And I like that she did that.
You mentioned something when you were talking about her that really jumped out at me that I want to talk about now before I forget. And it's, so you talked about how like, you know, she didn't really ask for this, right? Like it was her, like she has the blood of Cor, which is what they need to try to stop Terraston. And I was thinking about that after you said it. And if you think about like the whole party of adventurers, with the exception of Dom, like that's pretty much like the theme. Like none of them really want to be doing this. They don't want to do this. They're not like they have a life outside of this. They were happy living, but the alternative is like the end of the world. So like, I mean, you talk about like Sarasa, like she was hired to do a certain job, and then she's like, well, you know, shit, if I don't continue with them and help them, then maybe the world will end and I won't be able to keep going off and killing people for money. And you know, Andry, he clearly wants to go with his mom and chooses not to go with her because, well, it's the world might end if I don't help these people. And so I didn't even think about that as like a recurring theme for the whole party, except for Dom. And the only reason Dom is invested is because
he saw it firsthand.
He saw it happen. He saw Terraston. Well, and Terraston
and he cares for the world. Like all the other immortals are okay with it because they're like, okay, we're ready to, like, if you tear a spindle back to our home, like we'll just leave your home and go back to our home. And he's like, no, because like he lived here. This is his people too. He sees them as much as a part of him as he does being an immortal person too. So that he's invested in this world, this realm. I guess she calls it a realm. This realm. And he also knows that what Waits takes this, what makes him not, you know, want to take their immortal realm either. Like, I feel like he's actually very smart in that regard, whereas the other immortals are like, nope, we don't need to help now.
Yeah, I think what Waits is like Thanos. I don't think he really cares about any. He's going to take it all. Like, I think that's a good mentality to have, like for Dom to think like, why would he stop here? Anyway, back to my favorite character. I was trying to talk about like 20 minutes ago. No.
Yeah, my bad.
So it was hard to pick a favorite character because all of them were great. And I think Barbara's gonna totally give me crap for this later, but I think my favorite character was probably Sarasa. I didn't.
Why would I give you crap for that?
Because I told you I
awesome.
didn't like her at first.
Oh no, you didn't. You say you didn't like Dom. I didn't. I've
or
never heard you
Sarasa.
say.
I didn't really like either.
Oh,
of
you
them,
didn't like
actually.
her?
She was fine.
No, she was not fine. She was
But
amazing.
I came to really like her, and I actually really like her and Dom's dynamic that they have later in the book of the
flirtiness.
kind of like I feel like that if you're gonna go with like
It's flirty.
Sure, but I meant like they're like alignment. If you're gonna go with like role playing game alignment, like she's
I don't know. I don't play role playing games, but yes, continue.
she's like she'd be the evil character, and he would be
No,
like
she's not.
the good.
She's not. She would be
in
the
world.
thief. She's an assassin. She's a thief. He is your stereotypical hero. Like, he has a code of hero-ness. He's not going to stray from this code. Blah,
She
blah,
has
blah,
a code
blah.
too, but it's morally gray. They're on the
Right.
opposite side of the spectrum of morality.
Yes.
That's
that
my
doesn't
only
make her
point.
evil.
Okay, the spectrum of we can go over the spectrum of alignment later in a role playing game, but that's one of them. But it doesn't.
Oh,
that doesn't
I guess
matter
I don't
for now.
understand that. My bad.
So she would be the opposite of him. Like he's like the hero, the good guy. He makes all the right choices, and she does sometimes when it. I mean, she made it very clear. Like, she makes the right choices when it plays into her advantage for whatever her long game is.
Right.
And that obviously changes throughout the course of the book. I think that's why I liked her character so much. Is at the beginning, she's an assassin, she's a thief, she's a mercenary, she is loyal to nobody except for the almighty dollar and her own moral code. And throughout the book, you see that open up more and more, and like you see, like, she starts to form a relationship with these people that she used to just see as a job. The fact that she cares about the world not ending speaks to, I mean, she's not true pure evil.
See,
obviously,
that's what I'm saying.
right?
I feel like the only character who's true pure evil is the Red Ronin dude and what waits so far. I don't even
You don't think Terriston is?
No, because like I feel like he felt slighted. Like, his brother was the one who got, and they're twins, and he got the raw end of that being born because he was like 3 minutes later. So then instead of them, treating him like a normal person, they casted him aside, was like, no, we don't need you. You're a twin. And he had to grow up by himself, an orphan. He had to learn all of these things by himself. And I feel like he has a chip on his shoulder, and he wants to show like, hey, you picked the wrong twin, and I'm going to show you why you picked the wrong twin. So I understand. Like, I understand where he's coming from. Because
fair enough. So Terriston is evil by circumstance, and the Red Priest is evil by choice, because he seems like genuinely evil.
Like,
dude.
we don't know. I guess we don't know.
Or is it he who waits?
What waits?
What waits? What waits? I guess we don't know the pronouns. All right.
Right.
So the what waits, we're assuming, is pure evil. We don't know enough about what waits to know like what that even is, though, right? So I feel like that's going to hopefully get touched on more in the second book, which we now have to wait for.
That's always the bad parts.
But
so yeah, she is your favorite character.
I think she was my favorite. But like I said,
we're going on tangents here.
We are. That's why this is a bonus episode. So I like all the characters though. Like I was going to talk about Valtic. I really liked her.
The rhyming.
Valtic. If we're going to go like back to like the Tolkien, like she is like the Gandalf of their group, but at the same time, she's not the Gandalf.
Not even
of their
close.
Group because
she's
like
not.
So the way that she is like Gandalf, so she is there and helpful sometimes, and then she just disappears for periods of time throughout the adventure. Gandalf does too, although he usually tells them he's leaving.
She's the mystic of the group. Like, she knows the rituals of the spindle lore, I guess you would say. Like, she knows how to close the spindle.
Yeah. That was her most Gandalf moment, was at the end of the book when she effectively, you shall not passes the Kraken back into the spindle so that Corayne can close it. That was a really cool scene with her. And I guess that shows like just like the depth of these characters. Like, Valtic is like, you're probably not expecting her to do that huge badass thing at the end of the book.
Though. I feel like you are. Yeah. Like, if it's tropey enough, and she knows it's tropey enough that you know that there's a reason she's there. She's not there. I mean, so she's guiding them. She's the one who knows more than them, but not everything. Because they're always asking her, like, what's going on? And she's like, I have no idea. But, like, she got them to where she wanted them.
Except she doesn't
essentially.
say, I have no idea. It would be like if you came up like, what's going on? What are we doing? Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words
She
will
throws
never hurt me.
her animal bones on the
And she just
ground and
and
goes,
that's it. Like,
let me read this. Yeah, and I don't know. The bones aren't telling me much. Ask again later. She's an ape cute. What is that little cute 8-ball? That's her.
Yes, yeah, she is. She's the magic 8-ball.
Yes, that's it. The magic 8-ball. That's her.
I also came to really like Sigil's character later on in the book. That whole
You
scene
don't get
where
too much of Charlie or Sigil just yet,
No,
because they do join the band much later than the other core groups. Like the core 3 would be Sarasa, Dom, and Corayne, because they
Andrew.
start. Well, sure, but they have to go to Andrew, and then he joins them.
Yeah, he's
so
the
those
first
3 are the first 3. Like you start off with them 3, the core 3 right there, and then they pick up Andrew a little bit later after Erida chooses her side, and they're all shocked about it.
Yeah.
And then it's them 4 a little bit later. Then it's Voltic, but she's there, kind of not there, not really. Like they all kind of call her crazy, which is kind of, I mean, it's just I just really like the group dynamic. It's really quite fun to read all of them.
Yeah, for sure. Going back to Erida real quick, was that as shocking for you as it was for me when she turned against them and ended up being a bad character?
I feel like no, you should have known that. Especially in her previous chapter when she's talking about like the person that she picked to marry, and it was like she didn't want to get married. All of a sudden she wants to get married. I was like, that's not sus at all. Wonder what happened.
There's not a single listener out there that is surprised that I was shocked by that and didn't predict it, because it's me.
I didn't predict it. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying you shouldn't
I'm talking about me. I'm not even talking about you being good at predicting. I'm talking about me not being good at predicting. I was shocked when that happened. I was like, oh God, I had no idea she was gonna.
I mean, she's what is the word she's a Slytherin. She's cunning and ambitious. She's a very ambitious character, and you get that from the get-go of her chapter. Like she knows what she wants. She wants to conquer the world, and she wants to be the queen that everyone loves and adores. Like in her chapters, you get that sense. Anytime she's talking about people, she's like, oh, they're going to love me for this. They're going to remember me in history books. Like I'm going to be that queen that people will talk about. And I feel like that's her driving force, but it also clouds her judgment in that, because she kind of is narrow visioned on this and doesn't realize the big picture just yet.
Yeah.
Whereas
that's fair.
Sarasa and her morally gray character, she does. She solved it, and she's like, okay, well, if I want to partake in this world after seeing all these creepy death things and fighting like their shadows of what they actually were, she realized I feel like was her tipping point, where she's like, you know what? These blubbering fools aren't going to get anywhere without me. And I want this world to last, and I want to be able to spend my hard-earned money that I got, and I want to she still has a thing that we don't know, like what she wants revenge on something, obviously, and we're not quite sure what. And so for her to be able to do that, she needs to help them first. So
if we were to like do our badass character award, which we're not, because this is a bonus episode, and we don't have our tiebreaker, so we have 3 people normally. But if we did, and I was to nominate, I would nominate the entire party.
Yeah,
because I would not be able to just nominate one of them as the badass character, because in my mind, they all were in their own way at some point during the story.
Yeah, right. Like Dom is and I also I know you weren't a huge fan of Dom. I'm not sure if you were at the end, but I enjoyed him
at the end.
Yeah, I enjoyed him because he was. So yes, he is this badass immortal. There's a lot that can't kill him. I mean, he can still die. It's not that type of an immortal. It's more of they can just live longer. Humans call them immortal because, humans' lifespan isn't as long as the immortals. Like, obviously, they can live for thousands of years, but they still bleed. If you cut them, do they not bleed, Michael? So it's still that, like, they can still die because the prologue literally murders I don't know, 25 of them all in one get go.
It's a very brutal prologue.
Yeah, so they can still die. It's just the fact that they live much longer than their human counterparts. But it's funny to see that yes, he is the eldest in their little core group, but I feel like he still acts like he's a 19-year-old, kind of like Corayne and Andrew, because he's oblivious to certain things. His little comments crack me up, and even Corayne is like, gosh, you're so like, you act like you're 12. Like he pouts and he frowns and he scowls and all these things.
Is Harry Potter in Order of the Phoenix.
Yes.
He's angsty. He's angsty teenager, but he's 500 years old, but he acts like an angsty teenager. Yeah. That's perfect. Yes.
Yeah, that's him. Like, and I love that she did that. But so that's why I really liked him. Like, I enjoyed that he wasn't like your seasoned stereotypical hero that's like Aragon, you know, like he's older, he's the wise one between them, he knows how to fight and he cares and all these things, but like Damacrian is all of that, but he's still a teenager, and you can see those little essence of him acting kind of childish and maybe not making the brightest choices. True. Even Sarasa says like, oh, you're such an idiot, like why are you doing this? Like I feel like even though she's younger than him, she kind of acts like the mother hen of the group, like, okay, this is the planning, we need to do this and this, you can't just like bulldoze your way through all this stuff like he likes to do. She's the planner. And same with Corayne, like she's extremely smart, she is a planner, she sees the bigger picture, she kind of drives them to where they're going. And I don't think people give her enough credit. And then, of course, Andry's my marshmallow. I heart Andry. He's like, he is your stereotypical hero where he has, you know, he was a squire and he has this moral code that he doesn't like to break. And he's very standard hero-esque where he, you know, he's like, why are we stealing? Or like, he feels uncomfortable stealing or lying to people or doing things that aren't considered great things like Sarasa loves to do and doesn't even care.
He was a squire of a knight. I mean, that makes sense, right?
And he doesn't want to murder random people, and Sarasa's like, well, just murder him and won't tattle on us type thing. He's like, no, please don't do that. Like he's that character, but he still turns his back on this country that pretty much Erida and her country pretty much aren't in accordance to what he believed, because he was there. Like it's his point of view in the prologue. Like he sees all these people get murdered by Terriston and his creepy Ronin priest guy and all those creepy things, and he knows like if he just goes away with his mother, try to save her, he won't have a mother either, because they're just gonna come and get her with him. And if he agrees with Erida or like stays to be a knight or doing all that stuff, like he can't save the realm, and that's what matters to him at the end of the day. But like he's having this internal struggle with that, and you can see that. And he's still obviously even though being a squire, he's still a really good fighter. And I guess I didn't realize that. I guess I don't know that many.
He should be a good fighter.
Surprisingly, squires. Well, I didn't know what a squire did. I thought they just like cleaned horses and like shined your armor. I didn't realize squires learned how to fight, but I guess he was learning. Is that like the stepping stone to be a knight, Michael? Is that it?
It is, yeah. So he's essentially like, he's an intern to be a knight. That's essentially what a squire is.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, he should know how to fight. That comes with the territory of what he's doing.
I see. Okay. Well, there's that. And then, you know, you have Charlie who, why do you think Charlie's there really? Like, I feel like, yes, he got there, like, so he's like we're talking into our world, like he's the forger. That's what he is. He makes them fake passports and fake immigration documents so they can travel around the realm with no issues. That's good old Charlie. But I'm curious to know if he obviously knows how to fight, but not like super well like the other, I would say, like Sigil, Sarasa, and Damacrian, and maybe even Andry. I'm not sure if he's up to par with Andry's fighting, but I'm curious to know like what if he's going to play. I feel like he will play a bigger role in the other books. Maybe. What do you think?
I think so. I mean, I kind of look at Charlie. So Charlie doesn't join the group like you said until like near the end of the book or closer to the end of the book. Mm-hmm. But I think as far as like experience with this kind of stuff, he's on the same level as Corayne almost. Like Corayne grew up with like her mom's a pirate, so she's been around like this criminal people, and she's been around like a rough crowd, and she's been around, you know, been around that her whole life. But she is more of like the tactician behind the scenes, and she's helping her mother like strategize and figure out where to go and what to get. And I think that's kind of how Charlie is in his realm of the criminal underworld. We don't get as much of it obviously as we got from Corayne. But I think he's used to being more of like a behind the scenes guy. Like he's not opposed. He doesn't have like the morals that some of them do, but I think he's not as used to being as in the action as he has to be now that he's with this group of people.
Yeah.
And that's showing, obviously, like the scene there at the end where they were escaping through the canyon on the horses. Like Charlie has the worst time out of any of them.
He gets dragged.
He gets dragged by the horse to the canyon, which obviously would not have been a great experience. But does that make sense? Like that's kind of how I see Charlie is.
Fair enough. I was wondering. And obviously Sigil is just another character that is like a badass fighter. Like she's like
Sarasa, but more blunt force than
she's not murdering people. Like she's hunting the Sarasas of the world. That is her. What is she? What is that? Hunter? What is she called?
It would be, bounty hunter.
Bounty hunter. She's a bounty hunter, essentially. So I wouldn't say like she's bad necessarily. Like if you pay, she goes where the gold is, but different than Sarasa. Like I don't think she doesn't want to murder people like Sarasa does.
So the last thing I want to talk about before we wrap this episode up is kind of just predictions. Like, do you have any thoughts as to like what might happen later in the trilogy? I know I already gave one. My first one is Erida is going to die. That's my first prediction. Do you have any yourself?
I mean, I have a lot of thoughts, obviously, because as one is for these types of books. Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts. First off, like, what the heck is a spindle? Like, she doesn't really describe what a spindle is. It's essentially it's a tear in different realms that connects all of them, like Yggdrasil or something like that. Your realm is connected to this realm by spindles. So I'm curious to know, like, are we going to get more of a lore behind the spindles? Are we going to learn more about spindles? And because we get a little bit like from it, the core family tree came from a spindle or something like that and came into the ward that we're currently at and kind of just populated with themselves and gave you these spindles. And that's what the essentially what we get for the spindles.
Yeah.
So I'm curious.
I think we'll learn more as our group of adventurers interacts with them more.
Right.
Like they don't get to one until like the last pages of the book. And so
literally,
I think when they interact with them more, and maybe after like what happened, like she'll want to know more about them, and that'll be part of the beginning of book 2 is like figuring out that out.
Maybe that's Charlie, because I feel like he's the well versed of like the world history. True. So also, there's no romance in this, like really. So if you're wanting to read a book about romance, this is not just yet for you. I feel like she drops hints. Obviously, we were going to couple Corayne and Andry, and I totally shipped them together. I heart my marshmallow and my badass Corayne in the making. Badass Corayne in the making.
I should say, when Barbara said there's no romance, I was cheering on video because not that I don't like romance, but I don't like forced romance. Like
this isn't forced. None of what have we read was forced, Michael. What book have we read that is forced romance? Go on. Exactly, you can't. Which one? Give me one.
One book where there was a forced romance.
Yeah. Except for the crap. Oh, I shouldn't say that. Not the crap. Except for the stupid romance ones that are literally, that is the book. I'm talking about fantasy books here.
So I can't think of a specific book off the top of my head. But you know what I'm talking about. There are books where they write a story and then they cram romance in there because they think that's going to make the book sell.
Which one? Which one? We haven't read any of those.
Again, I don't have...
Right, so for you to cheer and be like, yay, finally, like, if anything, your shit...
I can cheer because I don't like romance in books. I can cheer for that.
Oh my gosh. So would you say Prior to the Orange Tree had crappy romance? No. There's literally one romance, and I thought it was very well written. What about is it Brandon Sanderson? What is that book? What is that?
No, he writes that very well. It's not... Yeah.
That wasn't forced romance either. So that's what I'm saying. Like, you have nothing. You can't give me anything.
Anyway, you can continue to talk about your romance.
Anyways, so we have Marshmallow, Andry, and Corayne. That was hinted at, I feel like. I think Sarasa and Dom, they have that. It's going to be one of my favorite tropes. The enemies to lovers trope that everyone loves and hearts is like they can't stand each other, they hate each other, and then they're gonna heart eyes each other. I'm excited to read about that one. And then honestly, I think Erida and Terriston, I feel like that's gonna be a thing. Maybe more one-sided. Maybe she'll show the human side of Terriston and he's going to go back and he's gonna have that whole redemption arc and then die trying to be redeemed.
Now he's gonna kill her and she'll tell us and why I love you. That's what's gonna happen. That's my app.
So those are my predictions for the romance. What else? Curious to know if I don't think Corayne's mom is actually dead. I think she's alive, and I think she's going to play a bigger role.
Yeah, I think you might be right about that one.
I don't think she's dead. As far as who's going to die, I don't like picking that because I like all of these characters. If anyone, even if like Erida or Terriston, okay, fine. Mr. Red Ronin can die. I don't really care about him or what weights can die.
Let me ask this a different way. Which character that we've met so far, if they died, would it break your heart the most?
All of them. Because even even Charlie and Sigil, which we don't get too much of, even I would be disappointed if they died. Like, I don't want them to die. Maybe Valte, because she's older and she's lived a good life. I don't know. She might die. But like, I don't want to see anyone die. I'm invested in these characters, and that's what you do when you write good characters. I don't want anyone to die because I'm invested in them. Don't kill anyone. None.
It's gonna
I know
happen.
It's going to happen. No, I know, because that is what she does. Trust me. I'm trying to get my little black heart prepared for this. I just don't. I don't want anyone to die, and I would be sad. Break my heart. She better not kill Andrew. He's my marshmallow. Don't you dare. You leave Andrew alone.
Andrew would probably be the most heartbreaking since he's the softest of the characters as far as that goes. But
what other predictions? See. I think
I don't have any other predictions. I mean, the few that I mentioned, like you talked about Corayne's mom already. I already talked about what I think is going to happen with Erida.
I'm curious, like, so do you think maybe more spindles are going to open? Because right now, I believe we have 3 that we knew about. The creepy one where the dead things came out of, the water one that they closed at the end of this book, and then the one that they Terriston opened, that Erida saw him open, that came out with jewels and something more. Do you know what else? Like, did you pick up on that? Like, she's like, what am I going to do with these dumb diamonds? And he's like, oh, there's more. And we don't really get what there was more of, or maybe I missed that. Did you pick up on what more?
No, I had forgotten about that spindle entirely.
Of course you did. I'm here for you, boo boo.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess we'll see. I'd have to go back and look over that one again. I was thinking of just the 2, the zombies in the beginning, and then the Kraken.
There's 3, so 2 now are still open. So I'm curious to know, like, if more. I think more will open, obviously, and they're going to close more. So I'm curious to know, like, what else is going to come out of these creepy spindles? Like, what other realms are going to bleed into the war that we're looking at? I'm very curious because, like, there's a poem or something that they read as kids that they know about these spindles that are opened. So anytime one comes out, they're like, oh, this is this ward, or this is this world, and it's bleeding into ours, like the whole sea one with the creepy sea creatures and stuff like that. So I'm curious to know. I think I might go back and see if I can look to see, like, oh, did it mention yes, did it mention other creepy stuff coming out?
This would also be a book, like, I don't know. I would reread this if I have time before the next book comes out. I wouldn't mind rereading this book.
Oh, one more prediction.
Oh.
For the Immortals, we didn't really talk about Rhea and her quest, because I think we only got like 3 chapters of it.
Very little bit.
Very little, but I think it's setting up obviously for the next book. I think the last clan of Immortals that she talked to with the dude and the bear, I think that they're going to help them. So I'm curious to know how that's going to go, because I would like to know more about the Immortals, and it's a really cool group of sub characters. So obviously they're going to get their help, and like, are we going to get a big battle? Like, I think that's going to happen, right? Second book, cool. Maybe 3rd book. I don't know.
Probably 3rd book for a big battle.
I mean, but she's sticking with Tolkien in the is it? There's
a big battle in the 2 towers. There's a big
battle in 2 towers. So I think we might be leading to that too, like a decently sized big battle in that, and then a larger battle in then the last book.
Yeah, you might be right.
Mm-hmm. So, any more predictions?
Since I did them all. I don't have any. You threw them all out there. I don't have any other predictions. I was just going to jump to the next part and give our scores. Okay. What's your score for this one out of 10?
8. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. 8.5 for me. I also really enjoyed it. Full disclosure, I gave it 5 stars on Goodreads. I feel like I need to throw that out there. So I gave it 5 stars there.
It was definitely...
The podcast, 8.5. So it's 8.25 then would be our average. Okay, so up to this point, we have talked about the characters a lot, but not the entire plot. Since we're in the spoiler-heavy section, let's just do like a little plot overview, and we'll talk about some of the points we really want to talk about. Starting off with the prologue.
Even though we were pretending that this was the end of the podcast. And by we, I mean Michael.
Just begun. So I'll talk about the prologue. So the prologue was like maybe the most like violent in your face prologue I've ever read in my life, possibly. Sitting here, like I was thinking about it after I read it, and I couldn't come up with one that was more. So if there is one out there that I've read, I'm sorry to that book that I have forgotten about. But so the prologue was really intense. It was the only character that's in the prologue that is in the rest of the book is Andry.
And Dom. How embarrassing! You forgot that.
And Dom. Well, so the prologue is from the perspective of Andry.
Okay.
But I did forget about Dom. So
you doesn't negate the fact that you forgot that Dom was there.
The book opens up with a different adventuring party that was out looking for like the spires and dealing with all of his stuff, and then
spindles, not spires.
Spindles, and then they run into Terraston and the Red Priest. Red Priest, is that?
That's what we knew him as. Yes,
okay.
The Red Priest.
Terraston, the Red Priest, and his army of zombies, effectively, and the entire adventuring party that you get introduced to in the prologue, all within like the next few pages, with the exception of Dom and Andry, just gets slaughtered, very violently slaughtered. Like they introduced you to all these characters, and then they all die.
I wouldn't say violently. This is a YA book, so it's not that violent. I've read more violent books personally.
Okay, it was an intense opening to the book.
Yes, I'll give you that, intense. But
so I mean, the whole battle happens and everybody dies, and at one point, Terraston's goal is to get both of the spindle blades. Is that what they're called?
Yes, because he needs a spindle blade. So if he has both spindle blades, then no one can close the spindle blades.
Nobody can stop him, because you needed one to open it, and you also need one to close it. And so he thinks that he's killed Cor, which is Corayne's father, and he's going to get both of them, and at the last second, Dom grabs the other spindle blade, Cor's spindle blade, and throws it to Andry, who's on horseback, who rides away from the
sunset
battle at that point. And actually, at that point in the book, like you're introduced to Dom, but you're not sure if Dom is alive, right?
Correct.
Andry's running away.
Per Andry's point of view, he thought he died. Yes,
right. The assumption that the prologue leaves you in is that everybody died except for Andry. You find out later that Dom didn't, but everybody else did. And that's the action-packed note that the book kicks off on. Barbara, what happens next?
But yes, and then you get Andry's point of view of running back to Erida, telling him what happened. She doesn't really do much. He keeps the blade since he has the blade, doesn't tell anyone about it. Then you get to a little bit of Sarasa and Damak and Dom and how they couple up, and then you go into them picking up Corayne, and then it's them venturing over to where Andry is to pick up the blade, since they need the blade, and then they also go to talk to Erida in hopes that she will use her army to back them up, because they think they need an army to stop Terraston and the Spindles from more opening up. And, that's where the scene of her betraying them essentially happens. And you find out that Terraston is her betrothed. So that happens. Sarasa stays around, rescues Dom, Andry, and Corayne, and then they venture out, and then that is where they meet Baltic, where you learn that she's kind of been behind the scenes in getting them up to this point. And then they venture on because she says that you need 2 more in your party, and that is where Sarasa leads them to the pretty much, what would you say, the kingdom of where everything goes area of the book, the
Empire
location
of Criminals, or Empire,
pretty much, where no rules, there's no laws,
lawless.
Yeah,
region.
that is where she picks up Charlie, and I think part of her also wanted to pick up Sigil, and she knew that Sigil was after Charlie, and that's why that kind of happens. And so they go pick both of them up, essentially, because Sigil is just kind of there, meets up with them. We get to another area where we learn that Corayne's mom's ship got taken down by some sea monsters, and that is where we learn that maybe her mom has passed away because of all that happened, and that is where Corayne knows to go next to find the spindle that's been opened because of where her mom was headed. So then they go into that land, and I apologize because I don't remember any of the lands' names. It is
we were
that's
referencing
too
a
much.
map the entire time we were reading that.
I know, we should have, and I even have my little map where I marked things, and I don't know where I actually put that, so alas, here we are. But it's essentially where Sarasa is from, I believe, is her home kingdom. They go there to try to see if they can find it. They obviously get plowed down by a little sea serpent thing. They attack that, like, are successful. No, it's a sea serpent. The Kraken is the last part, Michael.
Oh, okay.
While they're on the journey to Sarasa's land, it's the sea serpent that they attack,
That's
not
right.
a Kraken.
Just a serpent. Yep.
Correct. Just the serpent, but it was still an intense battle. That was pretty cool. And all while that's happening, Erida and Terriston, get married, open up a second, or at this point, a third spindle where little jewels come out. And we don't really know what else is going to come out of that creepy spindle and whatnot. And then they get to the spindle place. It looks like Sigil betrays them, but not really. She just wanted information, and that's how she did it, which was a great scene, by the way. Really loved the
awesome
being
scene.
Captured, thinking Sigil betrayed them escaping, and then she's there just hanging out and pretty much not poisoned, but made like everyone else kind of fall asleep, or so she knocked them out.
She put it made him pass out from drinking. She put it in their wine that they were drinking, right? Yeah.
Yep. And was like, I just needed to figure out some information, and that was the best way to do it. Beautiful. Love that scene. What a great scene for that. And also how to watch Sarasa like escape. That was really cool too. That she had like
the pick in her tattoo.
The picks in her tattoos. Really crazy. Cool. Awesome. Just like these tiny little details that just really make the book what it is. And then, of course, they figure out where the spindle might be, the one that's spewing out all these sea monsters. So they get there. You get this like cool, intense scene of them like riding horses, because they know, obviously, that Erida and Terriston sent people to protect the open spindles just in case they tried to close them, which they weren't wrong. That is what they are doing. So they are trying to get attacked, and they don't. They succeed, and that is where they close the spindle of the water monsters, and that's where the Kraken appears, and that's where Voltic in all her glory says, "You shall not pass." So that happens, and then it pretty much ends with Erida and Terriston like conquering part of a border kingdom that they had been invaded, and they're celebrating, kind of Game of Thrones is what it felt like to me.
Yeah, very much so.
And then that is where Erida's cousin, who's a poohead, pretty much, tries to poison Terriston. Turns out he
also
can't be poisoned. Really cool scene. And he was all like, fine, I'll chug this poison. Doesn't die. And he's like, oh my gosh, we're like, what the heck are you? You're a creepy dude. What the heck did she just... I feel like you can really feel the horror of the situation in there, because he's like, what did she just do to us as far as a kingdom? Like, she just effed us over with this creepy person that can't die type thing, right? And then that's where Mr. Red Ronin comes in and is like, they closed the spindle, and they're like, she shall die. So, oops, Erida kind of said, yeah, that was kind of bad on Erida, because she was like, she shall, like, I will help you kill her. And I was like, ugh, not a good light on you, Erida.
She's such a nice person, though. She just fell in love and is a conqueror, but she's really kind in her heart.
I never said that. I just said she's really cool. That's where the morally gray character tipped a little more to the dark side.
Yeah,
but,
that was a really cool scene.
That's it. That's literally the whole book in a nutshell of what happens. And then obviously you get characterization, world building, really cool scenes, all in all this kind of stuff. Because like the battle on the ship with the sea serpent was really cool to see them all in their glory. When they're escaping the prison that they thought they were actually in prison was a really cool scene. I think
that might have been my favorite scene.
That scene with them.
At least one of them. Like, that was just like the whole, like, they're all like angry at Sigil and they're in jail. And then the part like of Sarasa, like getting them out. Like you said, like she kept like the lockpick in her tattoo.
Tattoos,
and it's like,
yeah.
She makes like an offhand comment about how they don't know how to do a body search. Cause they did like a full body search.
Yeah, she was pretty much like Nakes, essentially.
That's what they said.
Like you think that your heroes have been defeated, and you're like, where are they going to go from this? It seems really bleak. And all of a sudden she just like pulls out these little things, opens it for them, and they still think it's kind of bleak because there's a bunch of people. They don't know how they're going to fight because they don't have any weapons. And then Sigil's like, I literally just pictured her like on a chair with her little feet up on the table and like clapping
goblet of wine
with a little goblet type thing,
turkey leg in the other.
Yeah, like, come on, what took you so long? Like, you're losing your touch, Sarasa. That took you like a minute longer than normal, like I was expecting. It was just like, it was great, chef's kiss, like great, well written.
All the buildup of like Dom running through the door and expecting to like be in like full blown fight, and then it's that. It was great.
Yeah. Do you have any quotes that you like that you would like to read?
Okay, so the first thing that I highlighted was like barely into the book, and it really has not a whole lot to do with the book, but I thought it was really funny. It's a quote. She says, "The officer was almost 3 times her age, nearing 50 years old, and spectacularly ugly."
It's like your favorite quote.
It is. I love that. It was just funny. Like, sorrow touches us all, Lord Demacrian, whether we believe in it or not. It doesn't matter what you call the thing ripping you apart, it will still devour you if given the chance. And that was something Sarasa said to Dom at that point. And I don't know, I really liked that whole quote. That's just a piece of the entire conversation they have, and the whole conversation is really good too. But that was the one thing that really jumped out at me that I pulled out of.
I feel like Sarasa had a lot of funny in general, like boys do stupid things to feel like men no matter how old they are, which just made me giggle.
Her quotes varied though from like funny like that one to like super deep. Like
honestly, I feel like she had the best quotes. I really do. Like she was a very quotable person. Like only men can speak all day long and still think themselves silent. Like what? That's funny. The an-Amarat, so the assassin is called the an-Amarat, and she says the an-Amarat has great need for those who can pass unseen, and who is more unseen to men than a woman. And that's why I don't know if she was speculating or like saying there's a more in their guild more women than men. I'm not really sure. Did you pick up on any of that, or because she meets up with the dude that is a dude? Yeah.
Then the implication that I kind of got, and I don't think she ever really said, but the implication I got is that it was mostly women. But then there was also, I mean, the only really person we meet from her guild was that guy. And so I don't know. I guess we'll see in the next book if they talk.
And technically she's not part of that guild because we get the hint that she actually has been kicked out. And
correct.
Another, like this one was one of her little witty ones about telling Andrew to like hurry up. She goes, "Whatever you decide, possible death or certain death, just be quick about it," which cracks me up.
The very last line where they've just found out after the Red Priest tells them that Corayne and her party closed the spindle. And the quote is, "I'll kill her," he hissed. "I'll help you," she answered, which was Erida. And that's I think that was actually the last line of the book.
It was. I think you're right, actually. Another great Sarasa quote. "If you don't belong to a place, perhaps we belong to each other. We who belong nowhere." And it's just like, she's really, I feel like she has one of the better quotes. I mean, I think all of the quotes that we read was literally from her. What were they not?
I think that they all were from her. So the quote at the beginning, the one that I read that was about the guy being spectacularly ugly.
That was Corayne's
in her monologue when she's still back at her original, like where she lives, her home.
But yeah, some good quotes there from good old Sarasa, and maybe that's why she is our favorite, right?
Yeah, maybe so. And I mean, the moral of the story, or the moral of this podcast, if you will, we loved this book. It was an amazing book. I haven't talked to Barbara about this, but I'm 99% sure she'd be okay with doing book 2 as another bonus episode whenever that comes out.
Oh yeah, like it's one of those she turned into like must buy first when it first comes out type.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna pre-order
series for me.
It was amazing.
Yeah,
I can't wait for the next one. Well, I think that's all we've got for you guys today about Realmbreaker. Thank you so much for listening. As always, we are Badass Literature Society. Hopefully you liked this episode. If you did, let us know. Leave us a rating on either Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever it is that you listen. Coming up later this month, we'll have our normal book review episode where we're reading The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. So definitely tune into that one as well. And if you're not already, follow us on Instagram and Facebook. In both places, our handle is @BadassLitPod. We'll see you guys next month. Yeah. I'm Michael.
Go make comments. Leave us comments. We like to read those.
Leave us comments. Ask us about the episode, or ask us about the book. Leave us your thoughts. We'd love to hear them.
I'm Barbara. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.